All right, good morning, everyone. And I hope everyone's having a great day today. Today is Sunday. I just wrapped up my long run and bike. It overall went really well. I'll put the Strava for them right here. But today I actually thought I'd kind of break down how I coach myself, how I go through planning out everything, since it is now the end of the month of February and now I need to plan for the month of March. So I actually can pull up right now what my training plan I wrote for February was, and you guys can see I put each of the workouts in and what I was going to be doing, and I followed that plan almost to the T for this past month. And then I'll show you a photo of it now, and you can see I did, sometimes things didn't go according to plan, something came up, or like one day I was just feeling like really tired, so I didn't actually complete the bike. But this is kind of how I go about it. I put more detailed descriptions of each runs in like a private book of mine, and I put some more detail in on Strava as well, so if you want to check that out, follow me on Strava. The link is in the description. But now I'll pull up my March month, and as you can see, it's mostly almost entirely blank. I do have a couple things already filled out, and that's because when I planned out my whole training block, I started from where I was going to end and kind of worked backwards in terms of mileage, so I could map out the build of my mileage, the peak of my mileage, and then the tapering. So I've already done that, and you can kind of see the first week of March, right? I have a down week actually coming up since I just did 3 weeks of progressing in mileage. So the last 3 weeks I did 70, 75, 80. So then this week I'm gonna do 70, but it's gonna be in 6 days. So I have an off day. And then I'm gonna do 2 more weeks of progressing, so 80, then 90. And then I'm actually gonna take another down week just because that kind of is where it worked out in my schedule. So then the week after that is my first 100-mile week. And then actually, when we get in April, there'll be more, but for now I wanted to focus on March. So since I know the total mileage I'm going to actually be running, I already put in my long runs. So if you notice, right, 110 is not really miles. You should notice I actually train based off of time. And the reason for this is I found when I was training off of mileage, it was a bit too stringent for me. And I found it a bit more freeing if I trained off of time, so I could be like, you know what, I'm gonna do an hour easy instead of like, 8 or 9 miles. I just fall in between and I get a couple, like 8 and change normally. I still do build my mileage instead of building off of time, so like I have 70 miles, 80, 90, 80, 100. The reason I do that is just because, I've been running for about 12 years now, and for 11 of those years I trained off of mileage, so it's very easy for me to kind of broad scope think in terms of mileage, but when I get more down to the nitty gritty, I actually prefer to think in time. So since I did this, usually my long runs are somewhere between 20 and 25% of my long run. So for 80 miles, it's going to probably be between 18 or 17 and 20 miles, which is why I have 2 hours, which is right in that range where it should fall around. You can see, like, once I get to 100 miles, my long run should be at least 20 miles, so it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, which would be 20 miles if I average 7-minute pace. Normally on long runs, I average a little bit quicker, so that is how I have that. Okay, so the first thing I'm actually going to do is put in 2 of my main workouts, and those are my marathon pace or tempo run workouts that I do. And the reason I'm doing that first is because when I started my training plan, I knew I wanted to progress those workouts in terms of length, and I was going to do that every other week. So since this past week, I did a marathon pace workout that was 35 minutes. Now, not this coming week, but the week after, which will be the week of March 8th, I'm going to do a 45-minute marathon pace workout, again with some strides afterwards. And then I put RW for running workout, because later on I'm going to start putting in my biking workouts, and it just helps me differentiate between the two. And then 2 weeks after that, I'm going to actually do 55 minutes, and that's all for the month of March. And I'm just doing that first because it's easy and it kind of helps set things up. The next thing I'm going to actually do is now start planning my other workouts in. And now that's going to take me some time because I need to look into what sort of systems I'm going to work, how I'm going to structure those workouts and everything. So instead of doing that and having you all sit here for probably an hour or more, I'm going to cut ahead to once they're all in and kind of talk about my thought and process then. So let's go. All right, so here is the workout setup, at least for running, for the month of March right now. So this week, I'm going to start the week off with just a threshold fartlek. And that's kind of a progression from a couple weeks ago when I did a shorter one. This one is more basically, it's threshold 1K repeats roughly, since 3 minutes is a little bit quicker for the 1K threshold for me, but it's just almost there. So I'm doing that to just work that threshold system. And then actually on Friday this week, I'm not going to do a running workout really. I'm going to do a steady state run. So just a little bit of a quicker than normal run, probably somewhere between, 550 to 620 pace. Just to be a little bit quicker, but nothing crazy. The reason I'm doing that is I'm actually going to be doing an FTP test or ramp test on Friday to get a new FTP on Swift, or hopefully. And the idea of that is then for the rest of March, I'll have a better baseline for training on the bike compared to that. So I put in all these running workouts and then both these bike workouts for this week, just because this week I wanted to plan out first. But then I go through, I wanted to get a variety of workouts in this month. So last month I focused a lot on that marathon pace and threshold areas, which were really to focus on that aerobic base of the pyramid, which I kind of talked about in a video last week. But now that I have that base, I still want to work on it and expand it. But now I want to also start introducing some faster pace work, which is why I have stuff like this critical velocity workout here. I have hills to build strength. And then I have a couple things which I do called 200s on the minute. And it's literally I have 1 minute, I run a 200, and whatever time is left, that's my rest. So if I do like a 30-second 200, I guess 30 seconds rest. And that's kind of what I have laid out here. So I'm starting to tap into those higher levels of that pyramid. Critical velocity, some repetition work, getting near VO2 max. And then at the end of the month, I actually have this here called a super fartlek. It's a special fartlek that I did a lot in college, where each mile is at a different pace. And it ranges from a steady state pace range, so somewhere around the low 6 flat range, all the way down to critical velocity, or even sometimes closer to 5K pace range. And you kind of just touch on all those paces throughout the workout. And I really enjoy this workout because, one, I think it's a good test for kind of where I'm at. And also, I get to practice, changing gears, which you don't always get to do. But yeah, so here are all the workouts. Again, still a lot of aerobic-based stuff in here, but now we're starting to introduce a bit of that quicker stuff. Alright, so now the next thing I do after laying out my running workouts is I go to the bike workouts next. And the reason I'm doing this is mainly because I want to know what systems I'm going to be working each day. Am I going to do one day where I really, really work the threshold system, or am I going to do a day where I try and touch everything between the bike and my run? That's kind of the design. Most days I try and touch on everything, so I'm not really working a one system, because normally if I were to do that, it's really going to tire that system out and it's going to take a bit longer to recover than normal. Again, now these bike workouts are really meant to supplement my training, help with that building of the aerobic base, and also building some strength. I am not a cyclist, I would not call myself that. I am definitely getting more into it and enjoying it, but as for now, the bike is working really to supplement my training, which is kind of how I designed where I placed all these workouts. The bike workouts I did not make myself. I got those from Zwift. I am definitely not knowledgeable enough to be able to design my own bike workouts. But for now, this is kind of the layout I have. I'm not going to go into the details of each of these workouts. If you would like to see more about them, you can either look them up on Zwift, or I encourage you to come back in the coming weeks and see these workouts as I post them. Alright, so now that I have all my workouts for the month set up and planned, the next thing I'm doing is actually planning out what I'm doing pretty much every other day. Now, none of these things are set in stone. Obviously, I could switch things around if something comes up, if there's a weather issue, if I need to move things, if something happens, I can move these around. But this is the general outline of how things will go in terms of each day when I run. And you'll see once I get to this kind of 90-week mark, I start adding in doubles just because I'm starting to get more of that higher mileage, and I need to start running twice a day to get that. I didn't throw in the doubles at first for these workout days, and the reason behind that is, I'm already doing 2 hard runs or 2 hard efforts on those days, and I didn't want to put in a third one necessarily. And you'll notice that on the days where I double, the bikes now are cut down significantly to 30 or 40 minutes. And that's just, again, because, I'm doing a lot more running that day than normal, so I don't want to overextend myself. But you will see at the end of the month, at that point, I do start putting in shorter afternoon shakeouts. That's what SO stands for, a shakeout, on my workout days. And that's to get to that 100-mile mark. But overall, relatively simple. Again, this is just filling out the numbers to get to where I know my mileage needs to be. Alright, and now we have a pretty big change from the last image of the calendar I had, but this is the last thing I do, and it's really just adding in the small stuff. So, doing my core and strength and mobility, which I call SAM, putting in strides once a week just to get the legs rolling, even on those easy days. And then these orange and yellow highlights are specifically for weight room lifts and calisthenic lifts. And the reason I'm doing this is because running and biking isn't enough. I do need to still build strength, work on some of those stabilizer muscles, and try and just overall build that strength. I ran that repetition pace workout last week with those 400s, and while I did go well, I think adding a bit more weight room work and building some more strength would really benefit my training and help show a lot of improvement in that area. So that's kind of the last thing I do. I generally want to pair my lifts with my workout days to get all those hard efforts in. And I usually try and do my core and SAM on days where it's not specifically a hard day. And the reason I leave my Sundays mostly empty is, again, because it's those long run days, and with the bike, that's up to 3 hours of activity, sometimes longer, once we get to the end of the month. And that's just a long time to be exercising, and so I want to be able to focus on recovering and refueling myself after the fact and not have to worry about doing those extra exercises those days. But yeah, so that's kind of the layout of an approach I take to doing my training. Like I said, I have been focusing on that aerobic base, and now I'm starting to introduce a lot more of that faster stuff higher up in the pyramid. And come April, we'll start incorporating even more of that faster stuff. So I just thought it would be helpful if I could show my approach, how I go about these things, how I design the workouts. If you would like me to go more in depth into how I design a specific workout, leave a thumbs up and comment below, and I can make a video about that as well. But for now, that's all, and I hope to see you all later this week.